Hello everyone and welcome back to the final week of my film music writing course. So today we're going to be taking that step and finally putting our music to a film and looking at all the processes in between and how we're going to reach that stage. So it's a really exciting lesson today, so make sure that you've got your concentration goggles on for this lesson. So one thing we need to think about before we start is thinking about the film music narrative. Now, when thinking about scoring a film, the composer needs to take into account the narrative. And the narrative in a film is the storyline that the audience follows throughout the film. So film narratives are usually linear. So linear, line, means straight. This means that we see the events of the story unfolding in order which they occur. So for example, in the film Toy Story, we follow Woody and Buzz's adventure in a linear order, starting at the beginning and ending with the conclusion of the story, and it follows in a straight line, and the story is very sort of straightforward in how it unfolds. So before we start scoring a film, we need to think about this narrative and if it's linear or not, and as this will impact the music and how we write it. Now, for example, a non-linear film would be something where at the start it would have a flashback of a childhood or a flashback of a memory, and then it would jump into the film, and then maybe throughout the film it would keep recapping back on different flashbacks, and that's not linear because it's jumping between different time periods and different scenarios. But today we're to be focused on a linear storyline that just starts from the beginning and works through chronologically until the end. Now there's a few funky words that we're going to look at today, which is really going to help us set out that narrative. And the first one is, on the left here, equilibrium. And that, in a narrative, is where the state of the narrative, the storyline, is in balance and at peace. So it might be at the start of the film where everything's all going super smoothly, and there's no villains or nothing's interrupted the storyline and everything's in balance. And then the next thing that usually follows this is a disruption or a disequilibrium. So this might be the introduction of a villain or something. And like I've said, it's something that disrupts the piece and puts the audience at unease in the storyline. So it introduces that sort of that villain or whatever it's going to be that's going to disrupt the rest of the film. And then usually that follows by a resolution or a new equilibrium. So it's a solution to the problem is found and normality is resumed. So it might be the hero comes and saves the day, and then everyone's all okay and everything can go back to normal. So those are the few things we've got, and it usually goes in that order, in a linear order where it's in peace and balance, everything's all okay. Then we've got our villain comes in, disrupts everything, and then the hero saves the day, and then we're all happy ever after at the end. So thinking about today, we're going to be looking at putting our music to a film, and before we actually start looking at doing that process of putting the music to the film, we need to just think about that narrative, because then what we can do is think about where our music is going to fit in with that narrative. Okay, so what we're going to do first of all is just watch this animation that we're going to have a look at scoring. Okay, and we've got a few other options, but for today I'm just going to focus on this one as an example. So this is an animation called Unfamiliar. So quite a scary little animation there, and what you'll recognise is from the horror genre, so the sort of scary, intense genre of music we were looking at a couple of weeks back. So now we want to start looking at that narrative, and just before we put the music to the narrative, we want to break out where we want to be thinking about the equilibriums and disequilibriums, and then how we're going to fit those themes with that. So at the start we had this girl that walked into the bathroom, and this is at equilibrium because nothing's going on, it's all at peace, and there are no villains being introduced yet, so there's no sort of disruption in the storyline. And I would think about putting a character theme with this girl in the bathroom, and you can choose if it's major or minor, or if you're going to put a scale with that as well. But I would actually think she's a good character because she's not showing any signs of being a villain at all. And then we had a scene where the monster was growing. Now, the monster grew twice, isn't it? So I've put monster growing 1 for the first time this appears. And this is the first time as well there's a disruption and disequilibrium in the storyline, because that villain's introduced and he's putting that audience on edge. And I would think about putting an intense or scary theme with this as he's growing and we just don't know what's happening. So we've got our character theme, and then we've got an intense, scary theme for this next part of the storyline. And then we've got a kind of a transition period where we've got the shot of the eyes and when she swings around. And I would actually think about linking that with this intense, scary theme. We don't need 2 different themes for that, as it's one whole block, isn't it, of that intenseness until she sees the monster. But something we can call it is transition material when it goes between the themes. But I personally would actually link that all together in that one whole scene. But it's all down to what you'd want to do. And then we have the first monster appearance, and this is when he's in that small, cute little monster. And I would think about creating a theme for this monster or a musical idea, but actually having it maybe major or something good, as it represents that cute tiny little monster that actually looks like a goodie. Then we have the second appearance of that monster grow, don't we? So I put grow monster 2, and I would recap on this intense, scary theme again, okay? So remember that, don't make it too hard for yourself. Reuse material, bring it back and repeat, okay? So it makes more memorable for the audience if they hear the same music again, but maybe just slightly change it, and we'll talk about that later. So I'm bringing back that scary theme, and then I'm going to finish off with the second appearance of that monster that comes back, and now he's in his bad form. So I'd think about maybe slightly changing the first monster theme and varying it for the second one to really bring out this complete change in monster, okay? So this is something really, really important to do. It's kind of like a storyboard. It's just mapping out the storyline and deciding what themes you're going to put with each sort of section of the film, and the music that you're going to put with that. So, I've composed, as an example, my own score to this, my own musical score and composition, to give you an idea of how we could go around this. So I've got my scenes and the ideas that I'm going to put with each scene on the side, and then I've got the musical example next to that. So at the very, very start, I decided actually to go with a minor theme, because even though she's a good character, I think the whole setting of it is quite minor. So I want to already sort of put it into that genre of that horror, okay? And it's not too scary yet, but I think the minor sort of gives that away. So I'm just going to play my first theme so you get an idea of my character theme for that equilibrium starting scene for the girl. So, nothing too wild going on there. It's quite sort of calm and peaceful, and that's the sort of effect I wanted to go with. And if you look at my harmony and that accompaniment underneath, nothing's going on, is it? So it's quite static and quite calm, and you can do that. Remember talking about that rhythm lesson that we had, that the accompaniment underneath is going to set that mood, okay? And I've got lento and mysterioso, which is slow and mysterious, okay? That's the effect that I want the performer to convey across. Now, my next scene, I've got the growing monster slash the eye scene as well. So this is the whole moment from when the monster starts growing all the way up until she turns around and sees the monster. Okay. Now this is a disruption and a disequilibrium, and I decided to go with an intense and scary theme to help build up that intensity. So for my theme here, you can see already I've got use of trills and tremolos as well. And if you have a little look, in the first bar, you've got a D and a G sharp, and then the bass you've got a G and a C sharp. And if you remember back from our scary music lesson, those are called tritones, weren't they? So it's the devil interval. So I'm really bringing out that really horrible sound that's going to sort of represent the monster. So I'm going to play this second theme. So this is the growing monster the first time it appears. Yeah, so you can see those tremolos and trills really sort of build up that intense excitement. Okay, and then what we've got is the first monster appearance, but it's a bit different than what we thought it'd be. It's good, so I'm going to sort of really try and imitate this tiny little cute monster by actually putting it into major. Okay, so I've actually put it into sort of a D major sounding chord. So when we see that monster, it's going to sound a bit like this. Okay, so just a small musical moment that I haven't actually decided to put a theme with, but just a musical idea that's going to represent that monster, and that's also something that you can try out as well. Now, as a tip for all these themes that you'll be start putting together, like we've looked at the last few weeks, haven't we? Building up all the different themes and different characters that you can bring out of it. Remember to variate the melody so it doesn't get too repetitive. And you can notice how every time I repeat a theme, it's just very, very slightly different, okay? Even going between the equilibrium, so my character theme, the girl, and the growing monster, the melody is actually quite similar, isn't it? But it's just very, very, very different, okay? And obviously I'm bringing out different stuff for each scene to sort of bring out what I want to sort of bring across to the audience. And you can see in my growing monster in the second one, it's very similar, same melody, but it's just very different sort of material. I've now got 2 tremolos in each hand. So just changing it up just creates interest for the audience. So this growing monster scene, this is the second time that she looks back at the mirror and you see the monster growing behind her. And I've decided to make it even more intense by putting a very, very, very low trill when we're going very quickly between 2 notes. And I've got a very high up melody at the end. So I'll just play this for you. It just makes it more intense by putting those 2 tremolos and using fortissimo as well, okay, and using those very extreme registers on your instrument can really bring out this sort of really intense moment, okay? And then we've got the second appearance, but this time it's bad, so I sort of want to represent this really scary monster by creating a bit of a jump, because it was, wasn't it, in the film there was a jump scare. And to do that, I've used staccato and accents on this really short quaver at really loud dynamic to sort of make the audience jump. And you can see that from, this is in the bass clef, that I've got an A to a D. That's my tritone, again, my devil interval. That's going to really create that really jumpy sort of effect and horrible sound, okay? So for this moment, I've got this chord. Okay? And as a tip as well, there's something in film music called Mickey Mousing. And Mickey Mousing is a film technique that syncs the accompanying music and the actions that are going on the screen exactly. So it's matching the movement, what's happened on the screen, to the music. So for example, in this jump scare, it's making the audience jump. But what I'm also doing in the music is making the audience jump through the music. So they're working in partnership to create an effect, and that's called Mickey Mousing. And you see a lot of this in things like Tom and Jerry and cartoons, where what they're doing on the screen matches exactly with the music, okay? And you don't want to overdo this, but I think in some genres of music it's really, really good to do this, especially in jumpy horror music.
So now what we do is we are going to watch an example of how I've scored this unfamiliar animation, okay? And really pay attention to how I've used the themes and how they fit with each scene, with the ideas that I'm trying to bring out, okay? So enjoy.
So, thinking about scoring your film, obviously we've talked about this with your themes the last few weeks. There's many different possibilities and ways that you can approach this. We've talked about maybe writing your themes out on paper or recording them on apps like Acapella, where you can record more than one thing, especially if you're not a pianist as well and you want to create chords and stuff. It's a great app for sort of layering up more than one instrument or sort of different files on top of each other to create your score. Or you can use online piano as well, and you can record stuff on there by using the keyboard on your laptop to write stuff. And I haven't mentioned these things, but now that we're getting onto the idea of putting film with the music, obviously it's going to get a bit difficult if you've got stuff on a cappella and then on your laptop or whatever you've got available, you've got the animation on there. It's going to be hard to link them up. So we kind of want one thing where there could be, you could have the film and what you're recording together so you can work together. Some great apps which if you haven't got a Mac you would have to purchase is GarageBand and Logic. Okay, and those are probably the best examples of how apps that you can use to be doing this project. But absolutely no worries if you can't get them or you haven't got a Mac. What you can do is use a free software, and this is called BandLab, and it's absolutely fantastic for writing music, and it's free online. You just type it, you type BandLab into Google and it will come up. I think you've got to create an account and you can already create a track straight away. And what you can do is down the side you can add your instruments and what you want to record in, and then what you do is you can record it in through audio. So you could press record and then record your violin or your flute or your tuba or whatever you play into your laptop or your phone, and then it will record it in a track, and then you can add different stuff on. But what's really cool is that you can add different instruments. So if you don't play the piano, for example, you could add a piano track and then play in and record your piano but on your keypad. So I think it's a great opportunity to be like learning different instruments and see what they can do as well. Now, I'm not going to go through a tutorial of this, how to use this, but there's an absolutely fantastic tutorial from the Songwriting Studio. It's a channel on YouTube, and the video is called BandLab Bootcamp for Beginners, and this is the link here, and it's a 25-minute video that runs through it all, and by the end you're a master basically at bootcamp. So really give that a go watching it if you haven't got access to the things on the left side of the screen over here. Now, what you will run across is that unfortunately BandLab, unlike GarageBand and Logic, doesn't have the feature of adding a film into that thingy, into the application, so you can run them both alongside each other. So what you'll have to do on your laptop is drag half a screen with your film playing, and then half of your screen of Bootcamp, and then you have to sort of be playing them both at the same time so you can write your music as it goes along, okay? And it still works, it's still absolutely brilliant. But Bootcamp, I think, to take your projects now to the next level and add more instruments and really cool effects you can find on Bootcamp to add into your composition, is by using this, okay, to really create a really cool sound world. It's got loads of different horror effects and all that sort of stuff, but I'll let you experiment with that, okay? So make sure that you use this link, and it's called BandLab, okay, to find this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a Google Drive link under this YouTube video, and what it would do is provide you with 4 different animations that you score. Now today we looked at Unfamiliar, the horror one, and I've gone through the process of how to break down the narrative and then start putting your themes with it, and then sort of different themes that you could put with this potentially. But there's 3 other animations as well. A Knight's Tale, which is about a heroic knight saving the day, and then you've got Witchy Business. It's sort of this witchy kind of horror animation, which is really, really cool. And then you've got Rainy Day as well, which is nice 30-second animation that you can try all your scoring techniques too, okay? And you can take the exact same process with what we've taken today, with what we've covered with these ones here, okay? So you can access and download all those animations to score through on this Google Drive link here, okay? But it would be in the description below as well. So, wrapping things up, some things to remember is map the narrative out. So before you start writing any music at all, watch your film, your animation, and think about the narrative and the different moments that you would bring out in the music and how you would do that. So take it really slow and think about, is it equilibrium or is it a disequilibrium or disruption? And then think, what theme am I going to put with that? And then musically start improvising and choosing your scales and your modes and your harmony, and think, how musically am I going to bring out those bits in the animation? And then deciding on your themes. Okay, so then actually once you've improvised and tried out some ideas, decide on the actual themes that you will have for your different characters in the animation, and think how you will create potential transition music between the two. And if you are going to do that, have sort of like little bits of music that goes between the themes, think about how it will link between the two. If you're using the same scale, can you use the same notes that will link across? Can you use the same harmony that makes sure it all links? Okay, think about your primary chords and your scales. Okay. And then make sure as well, which is really important in film music, make sure it matches what's going on in the film. So with however you're planning to score your theme, make sure to always be checking that your music fits exactly with the scene in terms of the timing. Okay, when you're writing your film music, you can always increase and decrease the tempo to match this, or you can adjust the musical material to maybe shorten it or make it longer to fit that scene. And that's perfectly natural. That happens all the time in film music to make sure it fits the scene. Okay, like I've said, Logic and GarageBand will be the best for this. It's a brilliant software. Okay, for working with film music and all that sort of stuff. Okay, but you've got your BandLab and your acapella if you haven't got those possibilities, which is perfectly doable. Okay. And last thing is to have fun, okay? So enjoy the process of finally putting your written music to a film, and remember that there are many different ways that a composer could score a film, so nothing is right or wrong, okay? If you're happy with what you create, then that's the most important thing, okay? And you'll find that there starts to be a little magic that happens inside you when you fit the music with the film and it goes right. There's not a better feeling, okay? So it's been an absolute pleasure teaching you this course, and I hope you have an amazing time scoring your film, and keep it going, okay? So lovely to see you. I'm Mr. Urban, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.